thank you, and I want to start by thanking Temple Israel and Majors and Quinn for making this event possible. I have a warm spot in my heart for Temple Israel, not because I'm Jewish, but because this is the place I voted for many years. And as Paul indicates in his book, voting is crucial. They shifted me, by the way, and my wife a couple years ago to the Unitarian Church in Mount Curve, but because it's Minnesota, I'm sure that religion was not the reason. And for Majors and Quinn, a warm spot in my heart because this is one of the last remaining locally owned independent bookstores in the Twin Cities. And that is a tragedy, but they are a treasure. And whenever you want to buy a used book or a new book, visit their store on Hennepin just below Lake Street. And this is perhaps even more important. If you buy online, buy from Majors and Quinn, not from Amazon. The prices are the same, the service is at least as good, and you will be supporting your neighbor and your local economy. So you can buy online. Now I have the task not only of introducing Paul Krugman, but of introducing myself. And that's always more difficult. So in thinking about it, I suddenly realized that Paul and I have a lot in common. Early in Paul's career, he wrote a paper on interstellar trade, where goods are transported from one star system to another at near light speeds, such that time and interest rates differ in different frames of reference.
I understand that being an assistant professor can be very stressful, and that was my way of blowing off.
Am I on now? No, yes. That was and young assistant professors do have a tendency to go a little crazy now and then, and that seems to be an acceptable channel into which to go.
Well, early in my career, I discovered what the speed of light was. So there's quite a lot in common, I think. In 1991, Paul received the John Bates Clark Medal, which is awarded by the American Economic Association every 2 years to an economist under 40. And in 1968, I led a walkout of the American Political Science Association meeting in Washington, D.C., and was called in the Washington Post the enfant terrible. Under 40, enfant terrible, it seems to me there's a real overlap there. And in 1987, Paul wrote an article, Is Free Trade Passé, in the Journal of Economic Perspectives, based on his path-breaking work that showed that free trade theory needed to be much more nuanced. In 1987, I wrote an essay called Free Trade, the Great Destroyer, which wasn't nuanced at all. For 12 years, I wrote a regular op-ed column in the St. Paul Pioneer Press, and then in 1999, the newspaper informed me that they wanted to go with a more conservative op-ed page. And a few months later, the New York Times invited Paul Krugman to write a twice-weekly column, presumably to have a liberal balance to the conservative comments of columnist William Safire, so there's another connection right there. And I think that the most useful overlap, and here I am serious, is that I'm director of the New Rules Project at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, which is a 33-year-old organization based in Minneapolis and Washington, D.C. and Portland, Maine. And the motto of the New Rules Project is, we make the rules and the rules make us. It is an argument for the exercise of collective authority at every level of government to move us toward a progressive future. And Paul's new and marvelous book, The Conscience of a Liberal, makes that same point. Paul's book is a remarkably coherent, empirical, and accessible argument that government matters more than the marketplace, that the rules matter in determining the economic structure and the culture of societies. And now to Paul, and the introduction of our guest of honor. Paul Krugman, born in 1953, received his PhD from MIT in 1977. He has at least 3 jobs. He's a professor of economics and international affairs at Princeton University. He's a centenary professor at the London School of Economics, and he is, of course, an op-ed columnist for the New York Times. The Washington Monthly called him the most important political columnist in America, and The Economist described him as the most celebrated economist of his generation. He is the author of, or editor of 20 books and more than 200 professional journal articles. He has served as a consultant to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, as well as to a number of countries like the Philippines and Portugal. In a commentary on the occasion of Paul's winning the John Bates Clark Medal, Avinash Dixit, professor of economics at Princeton University, he said, "Here is Paul's typical modus operandi. He spots an important economic issue coming down the pike months or years before anyone else. Then he constructs a little model of it, which offers some new and unexpected insight. Soon the issue reaches general attention, and Krugman's model is waiting for other economists to catch up. Their reaction is generally a mixture of admiration and irritation. The model is wonderfully clear and simple, but it leaves out so much and relies on so many special assumptions, including specific functional forms, that they don't think it could possibly do justice to the complexity of the issue. Armies of well-trained economists go to work on it, and extend and generalize it to the point where it would get some respect from rigorous theorists. In this process, they do contribute some new ideas, and they do find some new results. But as a rule, they find something else. Krugman's special structure was so well chosen that most of its essential insights survive all the extension and generalizations. His special assumptions go to the heart of the problem, like a narrow and sharp stiletto." And I think that if you read his columns in the New York Times, and if you read The Conscience of a Liberal, you will see a man who comes to his conclusions through looking at the facts, through looking at the empirical information, and then has the knack, if you will, the genius of translating all of that data into not only a declarative sentence, but an accessible sentence and a thought. And I think that's the genius of Paul Krugman. So with that as the introduction,